Brooks in the audience. Saw her stuff. I was like, where is she? Yeah. And I hear Jill. Oh, that's right. She told me that.
Okay. Thanks, Matt.
Get this show on the road. Where's everybody at?
Brooks in the audience. Nick is going to be late. He's here, but he's on a call. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Would you please, if you would like, to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Given that we are in the midst of the Hanukkah Festival Lights, I'm honored to have tonight's invocation presented by Ms. Arlene Zucker, retired cantor of Jewish Center of Bayshore and a Soleil resident.
Good evening. Tonight, the Jewish people around the world celebrate the fifth night of Hanukkah. Hanukkah, which means dedication, refers to the celebration through which Jews commemorate the victory of the Maccabees over the Syrian tyrant Antiochus Epiphanes in 165 BCE. Antiochus sent his soldiers to desecrate the temple and declared that Judaism be abolished. The only option he offered the Jews were conversion or death. Altars and idols were set up throughout Judea for the purpose of worshiping Greek gods. He outlawed the study of Torah, Hebrew, the observance of Shabbat, festivals, and circumcision. But slowly, a resistant movement developed against the cruelty of Antiochus, led by the priestly family, the Maccabees. Though outnumbered, Judah Maccabee and his fighters miraculously won two major battles, routing the Syrians decisively. The idols were torn down, and the temple in Jerusalem was restored. The legend relates that when the Maccabees entered the temple and began to cleanse it, they immediately relit the eternal light. A single cruse of oil remained, which was sufficient for only one day. The messenger was sent to secure additional, but it took 8 days to complete his mission. But miraculously, the single cruse of oil continued to burn for 8 days. Therefore, the miracle of Hanukkah is attributed to the little jar of oil. Our God and God of our fathers, we ask your blessings upon those who have been elected to lead and serve our community. As they perform their duties, keep them ever mindful of the high purpose to which they are and dedicated. Grant our leaders strength when they are weary, hope when they are discouraged, patience and perseverance when they face any obstacle. Bless them and those dear to them with health of body, vigor of mind, and serenity of spirit. May their labors reflect honor upon our community, and may they bring glory to your holy name. Amen.
You're fine.
Thank you. So now that my microphone is back on, call to order our December 2nd council meeting. And we'll begin with a consideration to approve tonight's agenda. Mr. Dyer?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would request that we add an item to the agenda for discussion and possible action to approve an amended declaration of taking for the Edgewater Hall Enterprises and Bank of the Ozarks property.
Okay. Is that under new business?
That would be under new business.
Okay. We'll add that under item J, new business. Any other changes to the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I need to request a very brief executive session for real estate.
Okay. We'll motion to make it a very brief executive session. We'll hold you to that, Mr. Peppers. So, any other changes or a motion?
Motion to approve with the amendment and the addition of an executive session.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All members voted for the motion. We begin tonight with some special guests and visitors, and we're very excited to have tonight with us our Student Holiday Art Contest winners. They're going to be presented tonight by our Theater and Events Facilities Director, Ms. Krista Norton. Is she here? No, there you are. Welcome, Kristen.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting our wonderful students to be here tonight. This was a project this year by our newly formed Cultural Arts Commission, and Mr. Peppers is going to introduce all of the members or all of the winners from each and every school that has students from our city limits. And their prizes this evening for the overall winners, they will receive a canvas of their artwork. They will receive 20 cards that depict their artwork that are our city's Christmas cards this year. And they'll also receive a $100 Visa gift card. So we're very proud of all our students.
Yeah, this is awesome.
This is our second year with the student art program. We decided last year with the city's holiday cards that it would be so much better if we could work with our local schools and have our artists come from our students. And so we put together a proposal to the schools that we would have them do art competitions at the school level with the theme of holiday in my hometown. And last year we were impressed with the submissions. This year we're even more impressed with the submissions. Each grade level has a winner at each school, and then each school selects an overall winner. And so the overall winners are the ones that are here with us tonight. Appreciate them. Our first winner is from Knox Elementary, grade 5, Declan Wright. And I'll mention also that we have a copy of all of the canvases as well, and they'll be on display here at City Hall. We are adding them to our annual art exhibit for the holidays. From Teasley Middle School, 7th grade, William Foreman. From Cherokee High School, 9th grader, Ariel Strode.
Doesn't look like it.
We will make sure she gets hers.
It's beautiful, though. I'm very partial to this one.
That's great.
It's the theater, so. From Indian Knoll Elementary School, 4th grader, is it Ty Tran? T Tran. From R.M. Moore Elementary School, fifth grader Dolly Gabrielle Mendez. Dolly? From Hasty Elementary School, Ingrid Antonio Francisco. And that's all of them for tonight. Thank you very much. We will have, we do have postcards, I believe, available at the front counter for purchase by the public as well.
Awesome. Congrats. Congratulations to you all, and thank you for using your talents to brighten the city's holiday spirit. So, next we have Chief Merrifield for some employee recognition.
So shy. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Tonight, we want to introduce our third quarter employee of the quarter, who is Miss Gabriela Gonzalez. I'm sure all of us know Miss Gabriela, a.k.a. Gabby. But what we really want to recognize her for is several things that she's done. And this, by the way, is a repeat for her. She has been employee of the quarter. And when was that? 2019. So every 2 years we'll see you here, or sooner. So I know most of you, a lot of you attended our multicultural event. Ms. Gonzalez was huge in bringing that together. It was something that she lived with for several months, as dealing with I don't know how many entities, I don't know how many vendors, how many different organizations within our state, outside our state, and brought it together, and she basically lived it for 24/7 for weeks and months. But it was an amazing, and it was bigger than what we had ever expected. But it was due to her hard work and everything she did to coordinate that. In addition to her duties, she's our Uniform Patrol Division admin assistant. She's also in charge of the part-time jobs that our officers work. So during October and November, with all of the haunted house extra duties and with parades and 5Ks and fall festivals, she had I don't know how many officers in how many different places throughout the day. And it was her job to keep track of that for 2 months. And then to make sure, and she goes out of her way to make sure that the officers get paid for doing those jobs. So she takes care of all of our uniformed officers and everyone. She's a great liaison with our Hispanic community and does a great job for us. And as for that, we have awarded her the third quarter employee of the quarter.
Congratulations, Gabby. Okay. So before we get to begin tonight's business meeting, we have one public hearing. It's public hearing discussion of cases MPA 2105-004 and CUP 2105-005 for master plan amendment and conditional use permit approval of Pod I Riverstone. Mr. Green, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. As you mentioned, This is a master plan amendment and a conditional use permit request for a portion of Pod I of the Riverstone development. I believe this is the last portion of Pod I that is up for development. This is for a 251 apartment unit that is a senior targeted. And of course, the conditional use permit is for a building that contains 3 or more dwelling units. Within the applicant's request, he is on the amendment, they are asking for to increase the density from 6 dwelling units per acre to 8 dwelling units per acre, establish a minimum unit size of 700 square feet. Currently, the minimum house size or apartment size would be 2,400 square feet. They're asking to provide a single means of ingress and egress, and to provide setbacks of 50 foot on the front, 40 foot on the side, and 40 foot in the rear. So with that, they are establishing their development criteria. To date, as far as I know, we have not received any comments from the public either for or against the request. It's been properly advertised and notification letters have been sent out.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Green. At this point, we will open the public hearing, and we'll offer a chance for those in support and opposition, 10 minutes maximum each. And we'll begin with the applicant or anyone in support to present the case. Mr. Peppers will be our official timer, so if anyone screams at you, that's who's doing it. So.
All right, sounds good. Well, I just want to thank Mayor and City Council for having us have the ability to present this evening. I must say before I get started, no offense to any architects in the room, but the pictures that I was seeing on those kids' drawings were much better than the renderings you guys are going to see. So what we're presenting is 251 units of seniors affordable housing. And affordable housing is something that is unique, as there are 0 affordable senior housing units within the city of Canton currently. The housing study needs assessment says that there's roughly 3,200 new units that are needed, 2,500 of which have been approved, and none of them, 0, are senior affordable housing. One thing I wanted to just point out, this is a specific quote, is mixed income development is important, and Canton lacks affordable senior housing to make that possible. This lack of affordable housing puts continued growth at risk and limits available land. So this describes precisely what our housing is able to combat. And that is that our average resident is a 74-year-old widowed female who doesn't want to take care of the home and owns $200,000 to $400,000 home and is on a fixed income and doesn't have anywhere affordable to move. And so when they move, they have $200,000 to $400,000 price range for homes that are now available in the housing stock. And what that does is it's an economic development driver where workforce is able to move into those homes, as new homes like that are currently not being built, as developers are seeking, homes that are $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 plus within the city of Canton. So what is affordable housing? Affordable housing in Cherokee County means roughly $900 to $1,200 rent for a 1 up to a 3 bedroom. And it means that they're making roughly $33,000 to $50,000 annually, or that means roughly $18,000 on a fixed income with $500,000 to $700,000 in assets. The project itself is located off of Bluffs Parkway. And we've spent a considerable amount of time on the site plan and coming up with how the site should look and what we should do and what the architecture of the site would be. And this is a housing option that currently is not in the city of Canton, which is a double-loaded corridor elevator building that is new construction build. I know that there are some that are several years old and 10 to 15 years plus old, but in Ward 1, there's no new build elevator, double-loaded corridor, new apartments. This is a rendering of the proposed project, and one of our goals through the architectural decisions that we've been making is that we want to build something that is unique, something that the city of Canton hasn't seen, and something that the individual residents and seniors can be extremely proud to call home. Because when people say, hey, this is affordable housing, well, people don't understand that this is affordable housing and that you can actually build something like this, where you have architectural gables, you have an immense amount of amenities, and you have features that are likened to market rate and luxury apartments. I'll also say our architect is in the audience, and should there be any questions, he is available for questions. It's another rendering. So there are significant benefits of the project, and I think probably the biggest ones are you are getting an affordable housing option that you currently do not have in the city of Canton. You have an increase in tax revenue. You have significant impact and other fees that will be going to the city of Canton. And then there's that economic development factor that I had previously described, where you have the ability to have seniors moving from their homes and having workforce move into the homes that are in the $200,000 to $400,000. And then the last thing is you have seniors who currently don't have affordable housing options that will, for the first time, have a housing option that is affordable. So we did have a public meeting, and there were some concerns that we were hoping to address this evening. Those were concerns of traffic, accessibility, of the variance to the one means of ingress egress, and then concerns about potential decline in home values. So the traffic concerns, I just want to point out that the only entrance is off of Bluffs Parkway, and most of the concerns were about Reservoir Drive and Reinhardt College Parkway. The traffic patterns for our residents, because a lot of the retail and everyday goods and services are directly to the south, they will not be using those roadways. I will also say that in comparison to other uses that are already approved in Pod I, this is by far the least amount of traffic that could be built at this proposed site. The concerns about ADA accessibility, we will have an ADA consultant that will be approving the plans and specifications, and it is something that is required for the funding for the project. And then the concerns about the variance to the ingress egress. I think a lot of those stem from life safety concerns, and that's something that we care a lot about and care that our residents are safe and the concern for our residents. And so we met with Jay Kula, fire marshal, who had said that the one means of egress was okay because we are a fully sprinklered building under NFPA 13 code, which is more than what is required for our building type. And then there are other extreme difficulties in building another means of ingress egress. I don't know if anybody's tried to walk the site, but there's a lot of topography. There's about 110 feet of fall from the south portion of the site on Bluffs Parkway to the north portion of the site. And we try to design what could be a potential means of ingress egress, which is shown in the top portion of the page. And you would have to do switchbacks down the side of the hill. And what it would do is it would be a reduction of roughly 22% of green space. So 22% of green space, if you're looking at the site, this is a 32-acre site. And so 22% is not just a small portion. I mean, we're talking several acres of green space that would be lost if we were to have another means of ingress egress connecting to a future roadway, which is depicted here. Another concern was the potential decrease of property values. And we've done a study, but there are far more reputable folks who have also done studies. UGA has done a study, Harvard's done studies, and in all of those cases, property values actually increase with new affordable housing development nearby, and it has more to do with the trend of the actual location in the neighborhood as it does to, you know, the affordable housing itself. So right now, what we're asking for is we're asking for you guys to make a choice. And the choice is to allow for 251 seniors for the first time within the city of Canton to have an affordable, clean, safe housing option. And so we really appreciate the consideration. We do have about a 2-minute video and pictures of a development that we just recently completed that's also in the Atlanta metro area. I don't know how we're doing on time, but should the council want to see that, we can show that as well.
I think Mr. Peppers said you had 1 minute, so, but. What's council's pleasure?
I make a motion to add 3 minutes to their time.
Okay. There's a motion, add 3 minutes as a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Our kids were really concerned that we were going to move into a community like this. They're like, Mom, you're not old. You guys aren't old yet. You're young. Why are you moving into an old folks place? And I'm like, we're not moving into an old. You should see the place. It's beautiful. It's the perfect place for us right now in our lives.
One of the things we know about the senior population is that it's growing. Between 2010 and 2040, the percentage of people that are over the age 65 will grow by 154%. 154% is a big percentage of growth.
The thing that Dominion does right is they're changing the game for affordable housing. They really are. It's a really active place for seniors.
With Dominion building more of these facilities, there will be more places for 55 and over to enjoy walking and fitness programs. We have top-of-the-line equipment. We have a card room. We have a theater. We have a wonderful clubhouse, and we have a wonderful area outside where we can cook and have fire pits. All of these things really make it easy for people that live here over 55 to stay young.
As soon as I walked in the door, I said, wow, look at this. You know, wow, look at this. When I first walked in, I thought this was a beautiful building. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven.
It's wide open, it's spacious, and it makes you want to come in here.
Once I got in the doors, I was just astounded right off the bat. My apartment is so beautiful, so clean. 2 bedrooms, my own washer and dryer, central air, 8x17 patio. There's no more moving for me. I found the perfect place.
I feel like you walk in and you can feel a nice, warm environment. My team is very positive, and the residents feel that, and I think that helps in creating a home-like atmosphere.
It's the best move I have ever made in my life. Here, it just feels like home, and I make it feel like home. I love it.
It feels like here's where I'm supposed to be.
The quality of my senior years has certainly been enhanced. I feel very blessed.
This is our home, and I am really happy here.
And then we do have some pictures. So this is a pictures of, it's 2 projects actually. One of them is in Covington and one of them is in Lithonia. Both of these were recently completed in the last couple of months. So this is an outdoor amenity space, the koi pond, interior library, exteriors, interiors, granite countertops, stainless steel appliances. This is the community club space. And above that, where you see the windows is where the library is. Card and craft rooms, salon, computer center, fitness center. And then that's the second project's library. That's it.
Thank you. And one citizen signed up to speak, Mr. Thomas Weaver. I don't know if that was in support or opposition. Okay. So we will open up for those opposed. Mr. Weaver?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Thomas Weaver. I rise in respectful opposition to the development proposal that is presented to you tonight by Dominion. Make no mistake, everything that they have shown is fantastic, and I'm sure that it would be a wonderful amenity to senior citizens, and it meshes well and neatly with your road plan for success that you adopted at the start of this current administration. However, there's been banter on council for many months now, and I would just ask council in candid approbation of the fact to please remember in earnest that there has been talk of Ward 1 is full. Ward 1 is full. I've heard that. Ward 1 is full. And then again, Ward 1 is full. At present, there's 50+% of all apartments and multifamily complexes are located geographically in Ward 1. This puts more. I believe another 251 more, which according to your agenda packet materials and your conditional use permit application that's been appended to your agenda demonstrates that it would actually raise that percentage to 53 or 54%, bordering 54% of all of the multi-dwelling use constructions are actually geographically located in Ward 1. Let there be no mistake. It's wonderful that this private developer is wanting to invest in our community, and it's wonderful that they want to provide. I was watching the video myself and the amenities and everything that they can bring. That's great, and that's fantastic. And council has recognized that there is a need for affordable housing, and I am first in line to share that, yes, there is a need for that because it doesn't Canton. In fact, people who have the lowest income pay, according to the materials, again, that's even part of your agenda, 70, 80% of their incomes when it's only supposed to be marginally at 30%. So again, let there be no mistake. What they're doing is a good thing. I just worry, it's the right thing, but is it in the right place? And I just ask that council please be mindful of the fact that, and approbation again, not to be redundant, the council has said many times, Ward 1 is full, and here we are, and this is Ward 1 that we're talking about yet again. So I just ask council to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. No other citizens signed up to speak, either in favor or opposed. So at this point, we will close the public hearing, and we'll open it up to council for discussion and questions.
I do have a question. In reviewing some information from Mr. Sween, the official person on the applicant, I think he's a VP of growth or something like that with Dominion, there seem to be developments throughout the country that have varying price points, if you will, based on AMI. Can we confirm that that is still the case? And if it is that planned for this community? In other words, you'd have one price point for AMIs in the 80%, and then a different price point perhaps for an AMI in the 60% range.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We can.
That was a question you just wanted answered sometime before the next.
Yes, yes.
Oh,
Sorry, applicant can no longer speak. So thank you. Anything else, Mr. Tullen, at this time?
No.
Okay. Mr. Green, I had a question. It was mentioned that there are no affordable senior housing in Canton existing right now. And I know in the packet it was commented that we have 2 senior developments in Canton right now are approved or in process. Canton Senior Apartments, 120 units. In Promise Point, 168 units. Are either of those, or a portion of either of those in the affordable category?
At this time, I'm I'm not certain, but I can certainly find that out for you by the next meeting.
Yeah, okay. I think Mr. Patton is raising his hands.
Both of those projects, Mr. Mayor, council member, one at Prominence Point and the one, other one, the 120 units, both of those are market rate.
Okay, thank you.
The one at Prominence, I think, is going to have possibly 10% of those units that would be affordable, but the one off of Reinhardt College Parkway, the 120 unit, that is 100% market senior apartments.
Thank you. I did recall something about one of those, and you're correct, I think. Mr. Carlin?
I just want to say it sounds like a fantastic project. It's what it fills a gap that we have. When we spoke about this earlier, it was, I think we have housing to be able to move up and down a housing ladder. Sometimes you need a full house, and sometimes you need an apartment. Sometimes you need something affordable. Sometimes you need maybe you come into some good luck and you can afford something more luxury. And people throughout their lives will move up and down that ladder. This fills a rung that we currently don't have. And it's hard to move from one rung to the other of that ladder if we don't have the steps in place. I'm excited about this project, but the only question I have, I guess, is about the two entrances. There's some discussion, I think, about possibly widening and the single entrance that's there to make it wide enough to, whether it be 4 lanes in and out. Don't know, it sounds like that's not been cleared by their side of it, but between now and the next meeting, if we could have some answer on whether that's viable. Adding switchbacks up and down, back up to the reservoir doesn't seem very good for an ambulance to have to go back and forth. So if there's a way to get past that issue. I appreciate the information on property values and traffic, things that we come up every time we talk about this, and certainly seems to follow the science on that. But I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. I had one question, Mr. Green, if we could get an answer to. This project has been referred to, and I think gave it in this packet, 2 ways. One is senior targeted, and then one senior restricted. I guess my question is, will all the residents be 55 plus? And it's not saying they don't have visitors and guests, under 55, but will all the residents leasing the apartments be over 55?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Estes.
Mr. Green, could you also follow up on, there was a mention on one of the slides about 445,000 related to Canton Housing Authority fees. And I didn't understand the connection there.
Ms. McGrew.
Mr. Green, I would like to know if these apartments are capable of housing seniors who wish to age in place. And if we could get a description of the conveniences in the apartments, such as drawers in the kitchen instead of cabinets, zero entry shower, that sort of thing. Also, I'm wondering if the applicant would be willing to have Georgia Native Plant Rescue come on site and see if there are any endangered plants that can be relocated.
Any additional comments or questions from Mr. Green? Thank you, Mr. Green. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I will make sure the applicant gets these comments if he's not taking notes already in the audience.
Okay. We appreciate it. In your packets, you have the draft minutes from our November 18 meeting. Are there any changes or revisions or motions?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion. Informational items tonight. We have in your packet the financials from October. Our finance director, Ms. Forrester, is here. If anyone has any questions. We appreciate your enthusiasm, but I think everyone is good there. So you do such a great job.
Well, Mr. Pepper suggested that we do something a little different.
Okay, great.
This month. I usually prepare a statement for him to summarize significant events that are occurring during the month or items of interest, just for his informational knowledge, and he thought I should share those with you
Great.
each month.
Thank you.
And so I'm going to go over brief items, and at the end, if there's some things you have more questions on, I can go over. If you have questions on the financials, too, or you can give me questions for the next meeting.
Thank you.
So in summary, for the month of October, which is the first month of the new fiscal year 2022, the Finance Department applied for a water and sewer infrastructure grant with funding provided by the State Fiscal Recovery Fund, and that's with the state's Office of Planning and Budget. We're applying for a grant in the amount of $1,570,000 to assist with the flocculation basin improvements and river intake screens. The city has proposed contributing 30% towards these projects, with total cost expected to be around $2.2 million. We do not know yet when the grant awards will be announced, but we're expecting to hear something in January 2022. On November 11th, we all took a tour of the new wastewater pollution control plant, and at that point in time, we were 20% complete with construction. And year to date, we have spent just over $12 million on the project. So that's what $12 million looks like. New water, sewer, stormwater, and sanitation rates went into effect during the month of October in accordance with the fiscal year 2022 schedule. Canton collected more than $90,000 in fines from speeders captured on red speed in the Hasty Elementary School zone during the month of September. Violations were collected from 1,195 first-time offenders and 9 repeat offenders. The city is in receipt of its annual insurance premium tax payment. The deposit totals $1,950,000. This money comes from the State Safety and Fire Commissioner's Office. It is based on a tax on insurance premiums collected across the state and then redistributed to local governments based upon population. Our population numbers are still not yet updated for the 2020 census. So when those do increase, we're estimating next year, this revenue from insurance premium tax should substantially increase. The amount that we received this year is $50,000 over budget and $62,000 higher than last year's receipt. When you're looking at your financials, you'll see that this month, October, is one of 2 months each year that has 3 pay periods in it for the city of Canton. This makes our monthly expenditures appear higher compared to other months. So next month you'll see monthly expenses look less than what this month is, and that's a large part. Why? Because of salaries. And I wanted to cover just an informational item out of our annual financial report. And I know we go through that pretty quick each year when we finish our audit, but I wanted to share one page with you. And this is something we update annually. And these are the 10 largest water and sewer customers for the city of Canton. Most of you know this, but maybe don't think about it all the time. So our largest water consumer is Waleska Water System. They consumed over 130 million gallons and brought in revenues of $377,000. Our next largest water consumer and sewer is Northside Hospital, consuming over 25 million gallons of water. Normally the school board's on this list, but it's not because of digital learning over the last 18 months. So the next 8 largest consumers are our largest apartment complexes. Those are River Ridge Apartments, Canton Mill Lofts, Laurels at Greenwood, the Crest at Laurel Canyon, Canterbury Ridge, Alexander Ridge, Walden Crossing, and Heritage Apartments. I hope you found that information interesting, and I am available for more questions if you have any.
Very interesting. I appreciate that overview, Ms. Forster. Just to confirm, $90,000 in speeder in the Hasty school zone alone for the month of September.
Correct.
And were you one of the repeats?
Not in September.
That's it. I'll
Great.
see you again
Any other
next
questions? Thank you so much. Any other announcements? We have time for our 10-minute public input. We have 2 residents signed up to speak. Mr. Weaver.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Thomas Weaver, and I reside at 131 Old Marietta. Mr. Mayor, members of council, I rise today to share, I guess you could say, I'm saddened. And, I hate to sound like the Grinch, but I looked at some of the recommendations, and let me stop there and take a breath and say that I have the utmost of respect for the chair of the Ordinance Review Committee and each member of that committee that has been appointed by our mayor. However, in regards to some of the revisions to Chapter 2 that have been proposed to you on first reading tonight, I wonder if, for the sake of brevity and efficiency, if we're sacrificing robust debate and dialogue. I think I'm getting outfoxed here. Some of the modifications that have been proposed by the committee that council is scheduled to consider on first reading tonight directly vanquish the ability of the citizenry to petition directly council for adding an agenda item to the agenda. It removes the necessity for the city clerk to go into detail as to what may or may have been discussed, instead allowing the city clerk to satisfy his or her duties by simply making a reference. You know, the shortest passage in the Holy Bible is Jesus wept, and if a citizen spoke, if it's just so short and so brief, if you don't have any context behind that, I wonder whether or not that would be useful at some point in the future on review. It also dispenses the requirement for 2 readings. I believe that there were select members on council who were champions of the 2 reading requirement at one point, but this removes that section of the ordinances entirely, allowing council to just light speed through an ordinance on first reading without much debate or dialogue, no need for citizen input, none of that, no need for citizens to add their thoughts. I worry and I wonder if this is really truly best for the city of Canton, and I wonder if this is part of your roadmap for success of increasing transparency and rolling out the red carpet. I fear that this is moving in the opposite direction. It may be backsliding a little bit, and I would ask council to approach with grave trepidation the amendments that have been presented to council and first read by the Ordinance Review Committee under Chapter 2 of tonight's agenda. When you get to that, look through them, read through them like I did. It might concern you too. And if you are, or at least a question to ask yourself, if you're a champion of open dialogue and debate, if you're a champion of giving food for time, food for thought and give it time, sleep on something before you just make a decision as opposed to making a rash one. If you're a champion for a 2 reading requirement, if you believe that the citizens should be able to petition their government for redress and grievance and approbation of their First Amendment rights to do so, and to be able to address council directly on these matters, I just ask that council approach with grave trepidation these amendments, and if appropriate, if council shares in that concern, I would ask that council remit this ordinance proposal back to the committee, re-refer it to the committee so that it can be discussed anew. Again, my remarks are not in any way, shape, form, or fashion meant to detract from the integrity of the committee's work. I have full faith and confidence in the chair and each member of the committee, But I wonder if this is truly good, if this moves Canton forward, or perhaps does it move Canton a step back. But with that, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I conclude my remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. Mr. Bill Rudolph.
My name is Bill Rudolph. I live at 106 Pine Sandy Bank in the Great Sky community. I wanted to bring up a couple of issues, and I know that they've been discussed already before the council, but regarding some safety issues in the Great Sky community. The recently added development or companies that have purchased property in the Great Sky community to open up pods 14, 9 through 15, I think it is. There's only one access to those pods, and there's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of there'll be several hundred houses that'll be added into that area. And there's no other access to that community other than Great Sky Parkway or Reservoir Road. And as the way it's set up now is that the vast majority of that traffic will be traveling on Reservoir Road, putting several hundred cars right by the elementary school every day. And also, the concern that I have is that from a safety issue is that it'll end up being a winding road all the way up past to the end of the reservoir. If there's any emergency equipment that has to get up in there, particularly in inclement weather, it will make it extremely difficult to have a timely response for any type of emergency, fire or ambulance or police for that matter, to get up into that area. So I would ask that a consideration be made to look at having additional access to the upper end of the community to not only to alleviate some of the traffic that's going to be traveling up and down Great Sky Parkway. And the majority of it, by the way, will end up on Reservoir Road because not as many people will go over to 140 over towards Laurel Canyon. So most of that traffic will end up being on the Reservoir Road. Again, all that traffic will run right by the elementary school, plus the apartments that have just been added, plus another apartment complex that's going to go in. So you could foreseeably get another 1,000 or so cars into that area, and with only one true access in and out of that facility, that's going to make it a terrible traffic issue and a huge safety issue again for the folks that are up on the upper end. The other part of the comment that I had is on where the road that actually accesses those pods. It'll be going into pod 14. It was originally when the community was originally plotted, that was to have a roundabout at that entrance, and now they're saying that they don't have the room to do a roundabout, so it's going to force a very narrow intersection there, and it's sitting right at the top of the hill. It's a blind hill when you come around the corner. So again, another safety issue with the possible ramifications of having traffic accidents and people getting injured there. But again, the big thing is the access to the upper end of that reservoir, and the fact that with only one access and the nearest fire department is over on 140. That's going to be an extremely difficult trip to get there in case of an emergency. And if you all remember the little snowstorm that we had, you're not going to get in there at all without some sort of help. So the way that the terrain is. And that's what I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rudolph.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Can I ask Mr. Dyer, give him a homework assignment, because I know just regarding that information related to what Mr. Weaver brought up, if he could check. I know that one of the things that one of the goals, and it's tough to see when you just get the red lines of the output, is that there's a lot of redundancies between the charter and ordinances, and so our value was to make the charter be the basis or the standard. And so for those few that he brought up, when we get to that section, if we could confirm that, we didn't get rid of the requirements for submitting, it was because it was covered in the charter. So.
Okay, I think we can, discuss that under that item, so.
Yeah, just give a heads up.
Thank you. Moving into new business, item A, discussion and possible action on cases MPA 2109-002 and CUP 2109-001 for master plan amendment and conditional use permit approval for TPA Group LLC to develop and construct 134 townhomes on the north side of Watermist Drive and the west side of Bluffs Parkway. Mr. Green.
Mr. Mayor and members of council, this is an item that was tabled from the November 18th meeting for some clarification on the development. Mr. Patton has had some discussions and emails with Mr. Huff, who is the attorney for the applicant. I believe he emailed those to you. I also laid a copy of those in front of your chair this afternoon. The project is how you laid it out. The Department of Community Development would recommend approval of this project, and we do have 3 items for consideration as conditions. The first one being that the Georgia Native Plant Rescue shall be allowed to search the property for any native plants that may be endangered. Number 2, the applicant shall petition the city for the abandonment of Watermist Drive. This request shall be presented to the city prior to the issuance of the first certificate of occupancy. And number 3, the developer shall comply with section 109.03.12, development access on the Code of Ordinances. And this is in relation to their request for only one means of ingress and egress. By allowing this, if they go ahead with the requested number of units, they will have to provide the second means of ingress egress. If they only provide one, then they are limited to 124 residential units. This gives them the flexibility to go back and look at their project to see if the second means of ingress and egress is financially feasible, or if practically possible due to the topography of the site.
Thank you, Mr. Green. I know it was mentioned also in the application that the applicant had requested 44-foot right-of-ways. I know the staff had recommended 50-foot right-of-ways. Has that changed since the?
The applicant has submitted a revised site plan, and on that plan, he is showing a 50-foot right-of-ways, or in this instance, it would be a private street. It'd be a 50-foot ingress-egress easement.
Thank you for the clarification. Other question, comments? Question, comments, any motions?
I guess I'll just clarify, saying that there was a request for 134 units with just one means of ingress and egress.
Yes, sir.
But the conditions that we're considering here would not waive the requirement.
That's correct. They would be bound to, right, they would be bound to adhere to our ordinance requirements. Any development over 125 or more, or 125 up to, I think, the next number that escapes me, would be required to have 2 means of ingress and egress.
Thank you very much.
I do want to comment, and we've talked about that before, that we worked really hard to kind of get to those thresholds, and overcome a lot of the master plan issues we had and been dealt with the past 20 years. And I do think those thresholds are very important, that we uphold those for all developments once we set that standard. And I think if we start varying from that standard, we're going to get back in the same situation we were before. That's my personal opinion. Ms. Schmidt?
Mr. Green, this property owner already has this land. If this project were to be denied, how many units and what could they build on this property without coming to us?
They could build 124 residential units with only one means of ingress and egress. I believe this pod, when it was approved originally, had a variety of uses permitted on it. The exact nature of those, I do not recall at this moment. But the townhomes, obviously, is what they're looking for.
So with regards to residential units on that plot there, I mean, with one ingress, egress, they're limited to 124 of whatever type, whether it's single family or duplexes, which I think is already approved.
Mr. Patton probably has a better recollection of the approved uses. I can feel a presence behind me.
I'm imagining that he does.
Mr. Mayor, council members, there was a master plan amendment in relationship to this pod, which did approve townhomes as well as single-family homes. This proposal at the number 134 units is in compliance with the overall Bluffs approval for the number of residential units. The applicant has verbally agreed, if council does approve this, that they're agreeable to the three conditions that Mr. Green stated. Originally, this property was approved for office retail at somewhere around, I want to say it's either 12 or 14,000 square feet per acre for the whole pod, which includes what's already constructed and people living in, as well as what's under construction. The original approval for this pod also allowed office buildings up to either, I want to say 10 stories. But there was an amendment that was undertaken, I want to say in 2017, possibly 18, that did carry this whole section towards residential townhomes and or single family. The total number of units that are left from the original master plan, 750 residential units, actually is 160 or 166 units that remain that can be developed. Phase 2 of the townhome development did not, if you will, be developed per the original approval. There's less number of units in that phase 2 of the townhome development than what was presented to City Council on the front end before construction began.
Thank you.
For clarification, I believe you stated that townhomes were approved for this location, that we're considering a CUP. That's for anything over 2 connected, correct?
That is correct. There again, this whole, if you will, we'll call it Pod B, in the master plan amendment, it did reflect townhomes or single family. This actual property on the conceptual site plan that was submitted did show single family homes, but the approval for this pod was for townhomes or single family.
Okay. But given, I know the number of approved residential units in the Bluffs, I realize what's remaining there, but we're only talking about this pod specifically. So without 2 entrances could not go over 124. And then given the size and topography of this, of this parcel, I mean, it's not really feasible that all those remaining could be built on this parcel. Is that correct? I mean,
yes,
assumption?
sir. The suggested condition about complying with the Unified Development Code, Section 109 requirements does give the applicant and developer a little bit of leeway in regards to overall design to see if they can put a second entrance in and meet the requirements to stay at the 134 units as they have proposed. If they cannot do that, construction plan submitted with that condition, staff would limit the number of units to 124.
Correct.
And as we stated, the applicant is in agreement with those suggested conditions.
And I guess even if they did find a way to put in two entrances, if the CUP was not approved and the attached townhomes, were not allowed, they can still build single family or duplexes, which are allowed, however many they can fit on that parcel.
I'm not sure of the exact number. I'd have to do a conceptual sketch plan myself to determine the number of units of a single family or duplex units. It would probably be less than the 124 for the single entrance.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Smith?
So if we were to make a motion to approve this, could one of the conditions just be that it's to be no more than 124 units?
Yes, I think that
Okay.
was one of the suggested conditions for the single entrance.
And then the architecture of this would go to the oversight committee, correct?
That is correct. If you'll recall at the previous meetings on this, we did discuss that with the topography and that sort of thing, the majority of the units are going to be below street grade, and there is an area outside of the proposed wall behind the units and the streets that probably would remain in a vegetative state as is currently reflected. They still have to provide a landscape plan, do tree counts, things of that nature.
And can you remind me, Mr. Patton, we have conditioned before the language we've used where we would say that we expect the buildings to look like the renderings that were provided to us?
We've had those discussions. I don't recall a specific condition the City Council approved relative to maintaining what was submitted with renderings. But Oversight Committee looks very strongly at the renderings and what was proposed as part of that approval process. I know the renderings do look different than Phase 1, Phase 2, and the fact that they do show some, if you will, front entry overhangs, roofing, which gives a little bit of contrast and breakup to the buildings and that sort of thing that was not within Phase 1.
Thank you.
Mr. Tiller?
I just want to make sure I'm clear, gentlemen. If we were to deny this, the applicant could build as many as 42 more units than the 124 up to 166 of some type, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
They could by the numbers that are allowed, but on that parcel, I mean, it's not physically possible to fit that many on that.
I'd have to do some sketch drawings. I think it would be impossible to situate 166 units on that particular piece of property.
Yeah.
I think that's why the design reflects the 134 max unit.
I mean, that was my assumption that the, attached townhomes maximizes the number of units there. And while I realize the demand is certainly there, you build it and they will come, which is it's a little different. I mean, to me, it's quite different than the case we had the hearing on tonight is a product that we don't have in the city, and this is a product we have, just in the same pod, and so for me, it's this quality over quantity, issue, and I think again more in Ward 1, but also the fact that I guess the city is also now the major property owner in the Bluffs area too, that I feel kind of even more responsibility just to think about that a little bit more. So, Ms. McGrew?
To be clear, if this is denied and they want to come back with a different proposal for multi-units that are attached, they would have to come back for a CUP or not?
Depends. If it's 2 units, no, they would not have to come back for conditional use.
So 3 or more
Only 3
attached.
attached or more requires a CUP. If you deny the request for conditional use permit, they could not bring back a different CUP for 1 year.
Thank you.
Mr. Justice?
So regarding the, we'd have to take an action on the master plan amendment. At 124, is it still require a master plan amendment motion?
The master plan amendment, if you will, would remove the single-family detached where it becomes all townhomes.
Okay, so it's not about necessarily the quantity at this point. It's more of the taking off the single-family.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I make a motion to deny the master plan amendment.
Second.
Motion to deny the master plan amendment. There's a second. Further discussion and questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
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 Okay. Let's do a roll call vote. Mr. Carlin?
Nay.
Okay. Ms. Wilson?
I vote yes for the motion.
Motion to deny.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Strudlin?
Nay.
Okay. Ms. Schmidt?
Nay.
Yes.
Ms. McGrew? Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Justice, yes. Seeing that there is a tie, 3-3, means the mayor breaks the tie. Mayor votes yes for the motion, so the motion carries. Do we need to vote on the CUP based on?
Comes a moot point, I'm pretty sure, correct? Should they get? Well, townhomes are allowed because of the. It basically removed the single-family detached option.
So the CUP could still be approved, and they could build townhomes, even without the master plan amendment? Right?
Yes.
So you still have to vote on the CUP?
Yeah, we typically vote on those separately anyway, so. I'm sorry, we can't allow public comment, so. So we've a discussion on the CUP or
The applicant has requested City Council consider tabling this matter so the applicant can follow up with additional information, discussions on this matter.
I mean, I don't think that they should have to wait a year to come back based on.
I certainly agree, but procedurally, I think there's a decision made. I don't agree with it, but I think that that's the decision. We'd have to look and see how to set aside where to reconsider. Is a move to reconsider?
Move to reconsider the motion, and then there'd be a separate motion to table? Is that what you're saying, Mr. Dyer?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Two motions.
It'd be two separate.
Right, correct.
Undo it and then come back.
So this one would either need a motion to table the CUP or a motion to approve or deny the CUP. Is that correct?
No.
So then we could table them back.
If we made a motion to table the CUP, can we then, when we make a decision on that, then revisit the master plan amendment, or is it a done deal for a year?
Well, you could reconsider it at any time during this meeting, even after considering other items. You could also move to rescind it at the next meeting.
Okay.
There's no sense in separating them.
Right.
So
Just, yeah.
let's try again, I say. I make a motion to reconsider.
Second. Yeah, if that fails.
Right.
If that fails, then
To reconsider the master plan.
Yes, so that we could then discuss tabling it.
Okay. So there's a motion to reconsider the motion that was approved to deny the master plan amendments. So we have a second. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
We discuss after a motion, right?
Yes.
I want to know what about the master plan council wants to reconsider.
I don't think it's required for the motion.
I'm sorry?
I don't think it's required for the motion. It's the motion to reconsider. And if that passes, then the motion can be re-urged. Mr. Estes, if he wants to urging it, or a new motion addressing the same subject matter would come in.
What in the master plan is causing council to want to reconsider the motion? Is it that it would negate any single-family homes, or
I want to reconsider the motion so that we can discuss tabling both the master plan and the CUP.
I see.
That's the only way we can table it. Otherwise, they can't come back for a year.
I see.
For the CUP.
Right.
Okay. So we have a motion to reconsider. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
It's not your night, Mayor.
Mayor votes nay. Motion fails. So that means we still need a motion on the CUP.
Be the same.
I think it's too late. Decision.
Does it require action from us to allow the withdrawal, or is it
We'd have to,
move to allow the applicant to withdraw the CUP application
Second.
without prejudice.
without prejudice? Yes.
Second.
That's what
We have a motion and we have a second. And just for clarification, this would allow them to make changes to the plan and come back in less than 12 months, correct? Correct. That's all it would allow, correct? Okay. further comments or question? Okay, we have a motion to, sorry, this is a, so we have a motion to allow the applicant to withdraw the CUP without prejudice. In a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Is that? Let's do a roll call. Mr. Carlin?
I'm vote for the motion to allow the withdrawal of the CUP request without prejudice.
Okay. Ms. Wilson? Oh,
Yes.
to withdraw without prejudice?
Yes.
You approve? Ms. Stone?
Yes.
Ms. Schmidt?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
That's okay. Motion carries unanimously. So, okay. We will move on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members.
Thank you, Mr. Patton and Mr. Green. Item B, discussion and possible action to approve resolution to adopt the Canton redevelopment plan and creation of the tax allocation. Mr. Peppers.
At our last meeting, we had the public hearing on the tax allocation district and the redevelopment plan. Tonight would be a discussion and consideration to approve the resolution adopting the redevelopment plan and creating the tax allocation district. As this is approved, then we would work in the next steps to get the TAD district certified, working with both the tax assessor and the State Department of Revenue, so that the TAD would be in place before the end of the calendar year, and the properties would be certified as part of that TAD, so that starting on January 1st, 2022, the parcels in the TAD, any increase in taxes related to that could be captured as part of the tax allocation district. Questions you might have?
Have any questions for Mr. Peppers? Been talking about this for a long time. Mr. Estes.
Make a motion to approve the resolution to create the Canton redevelopment area in the tax allocation district.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. All members voted for the motion. New business. Item A, discussion of resolution to adopt Cherokee County Hazard Mitigation Plan 2021 through 2026.
This is a plan that we adopt every 5 years with Cherokee County. It's related to our ability to work with the county on any reimbursements that might come through from a federally declared disaster in the area. It basically spells out our role that we play with Cherokee Emergency Management Agency and then their response as it relates to FEMA. It's something that we've always approved. In most cases, what we're doing is we're updating contact information, but it is something that has to be reapproved every 5 years. It does not require action tonight. It can be acted on at the next meeting, but I'm happy to answer any particular questions you might have about it.
Mr. Peppers, there were no substantial changes from the same agreement?
There were not.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay. Item B, discussion of fees, fines, and bond schedule. Ms. Fitz. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi. Well, I did an audit on all the fees and bonds, and we were only off a couple on the code sections, but we're in line with all the fees and fines.
Okay. And those were included in the presentation. Excuse me. Okay. Any questions for Ms. Fitz? Mr. Estes.
Sorry, this is an easy one. What's the difference between base amount and fine amount?
The base amount is what you're allowed to charge.
Okay.
And then the fine is with all the add-ons.
Got it. Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay. And item C, discussion of information exchange agreement with Cherokee County Development Department.
Yes, sir. We do the fingerprinting for their alcohol permits. We've been doing it for over a year. And GCIC is requiring them to have an agreement with the city of Canton to do this.
So this is just formalizing what we've been doing for a year, is that
Yes,
correct?
sir.
Okay. Questions? Ms. McGrew?
What action do you need?
For the mayor to sign the order that's saying that we can do it.
Do we need to vote?
I think it was just on for discussion tonight. Do we need to vote tonight? No, we can wait. So next one? Okay.
Okay, but it will have to come through vote. The agreement to do this will have to come through a vote? Okay.
Yeah. Could possibly include on the consent agenda. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Ms. Fitz. And item D, discussion of retirement plan documents. Mr. Peppers.
We had a special called meeting back in October and discussed the city's retirement plan. At that time, the recommendation from management was that we close our defined benefit plan at the end of the calendar year and move to a more robust defined contribution plan for all new employees that start in January of 2022. We did receive the plan documents on the defined benefit plan at the beginning of this week. As you can imagine, with the holidays, it did take quite a bit of time for Georgia Municipal Association and their group to put those plan documents together. Additionally, in your package, you have the information on the defined contribution plan that is also associated with that. We don't have to have action on this tonight. We'll take action on it at the next meeting, but I did want to get the plans in front of you. I'm happy to answer any particular questions that you might have. Once that's adopted, we'll finalize these agreements with signatures and get them turned around. We're already working on some informational items with staff associated with this to let them know what's going on. So I'm happy to answer any particular questions you might have about either one of these plan documents.
Okay. That is something we would need to adopt at the next meeting, just for year-end purposes, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Questions? Okay, thank you. Item E, Ordinance Review Committee Progress Report. Mr. Carlin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have, back in September, you appointed an Ordinance Review Committee. It consists of myself, Mr. Estes, and Ms. Wilson. We've had a number of meetings with the assistance of City's Council, Mr. Dyer, Mr. Peppers, Mr. Ingram. Some staff members have been there with us. We've heard from the public as well. Each of our meetings have been public, and we've invited public input at each meeting and received it at most of our meetings. We began at the top and moved our way towards the bottom, starting with ones and twos and working our way up. We've gotten through 3 major chapters and wanted to bring an interim report rather to council and go ahead and get those items moving. Mr. Dyer is going to step up in just a moment and go over some of those with us. They're going to be chapters 2, cover administration, chapter 6 with alcoholic beverages, and chapter 10 with amusements and entertainments. Every one of the changes that's coming to you today is something that came from passed unanimously amongst our committee. We've had full attendance and full votes. We've not always agreed, but we've always come to an agreement. We have offering these for council today as Mr. Dyer goes through them for us to consider in our next meeting. And we are continuing to move through. We've taken on chapter 14 with animals and businesses and business licensing, and chapter 18 as well. And if you want to tune in to our next meeting, it'll be December 8th, where we will tackle the very exciting chapter 19 with cemeteries. But I appreciate the work of Mr. Estes, Ms. Wilson, all the staff who've been involved. It is tedious at times, but it certainly doesn't feel that way with people working as hard as everybody is. So we will address it from there. That's all I had. Thank
Great.
you all.
I appreciate the progress report, and I echo Mr. Carlin's sentiments. I appreciate the hard work that's gone into this and the efficient work that's gone into this. It's one of those things we've been wanting to do for a long time, and it's great that our committee members and council members are there doing the work and being supported by our staff, and we're getting it done. So I appreciate that. Mr. Estes?
And again, before Mr. Dyer gets up, there was a conscious effort where, as many of us on council knew, that the ordinances at times would contradict the charter, and then there were many times where the charter stated it and then it was restated, albeit sometimes not exactly. So there was a position where we said, if it's in the charter, we will keep it in the charter and take it out of the ordinances. That way it relieves the heavy lifting by the administrative work to make sure that we're going back and capturing it in all the different various places.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
And the charter overrules ordinances, so.
Exactly, yeah.
Correct, okay. Mr. Dyer, so we'll begin with your review of Chapter 2, Administration.
Yes, and so Mr. Estes explained that part of it, which is what led, I think, to our effort, because we've mentioned points of conflict. We also, I think, another way to describe a second category of changes was just making sure that there was no inconsistencies with the way we were operating versus what the ordinances said. And so this Chapter 2 deals with our processes and procedures, and those were sort of the two goals. Is if we're not operating the way the ordinances said, we need to change the ordinances, and if the ordinances were in conflict, we need to change them or delete them. So much of the strikings, the things that were eliminated are, for instance, the general duties of the mayor and the mayor pro tem are struck in their entirety because they are in the charter. And so the idea was that we don't want to create the potential conflicts. And I think where we ended up with the ordinances they were is that the charter might get changed. You have to remember to go change the ordinance. And it's just better not to have that clutter and having to remember to change things. There are many changes. We're dealing with the references to he and chairman and those things and making those neutral. So there's a lot of those changes in here. I think I can hit just some highlights without it getting too tedious. The compensation was actually wrong, and so we just changed that to, again, not have to remember to go change the ordinance when the compensation changes to provide that it will be set by council. So that was 2-21. 2-49 is struck because the organizational meeting was described in the charter. This described it differently and incorrectly. One of the substantive changes we did make was eliminating the references to work session. The feeling of the committee was that we do have the 2 reading requirement, and I'll explain that in just a second. But work session is not a legal concept. And so avoiding the confusion of can we vote, can we not vote, when you have to have 2 readings anyway. You are now operating with this change that we're proposing, which is, so it's just 2 regular meetings now without any confusion, without defining the work session, which was the other option. The quorum was a thing that was in conflict, so we eliminated the reference to a quorum in the ordinance, and the charter provides for the definition of quorum. Executive sessions, I skipped over that. We struck the detail of executive sessions and just refer to the state law on that. The abstentions down at the bottom, we refer to the ethics ordinance instead of having a separate item. So the minutes, one thing that was mentioned in the public comment was that we're only allowing a brief summary. This was changing it to add that in. The existing ordinance didn't even provide for that. It just provided for motions and votes, which is, what city attorneys like, but I've lost that battle many times. I mentioned in the committee, and So this was actually, after talking with Ms. Fortner, calling it a brief summary is basically what she's doing now. So if you were happy with how the minutes look now, this ordinance now matches what we're doing now. We also added in a provision that if any more detailed information is necessary, the council can vote to provide that additional information. If you think the summary is too brief, you can request that more detail be put in there. So that was actually a change to provide more information than our ordinance called out for. The order of business, we weren't following this order of business, and therefore it needed to be changed. I think the feeling was to go ahead and strike it. You will adopt the order as you proceed, and now we're not, again, stuck with an ordinance requiring it to go in a certain order, and I think we'll be fine on that. We did eliminate the ability for a member of the public to ask for an item to be on the agenda. So, but we cleared up the public participation part, the public comment part, to say that it is required at meetings, and there was never anything about the time limit. We've operated with a 10-minute time limit, so that's now in the ordinance unless it's extended. So that's the only part of the public participation that was changed, was the ability to place an item on the agenda. The next substantive thing is the 2 reading requirement. Just to refresh your memory of what we had, the ordinance had nothing. I mean, the charter provided nothing about 2 readings. The ordinance required 2 readings. So that was in conflict with the charter. So what you may recall when we did the charter amendments, we put the 2 reading requirement into the charter. It doesn't say 2 readings. It says no ordinance can be adopted on the same meeting where it is proposed. So it's in effect, you have to have 2 meetings to vote on it. The city attorneys, there's this email group. There was just this debate one day about what reading means, because that's an old-fashioned reading, and everybody, do you have to actually read them? So we don't want to have 2 readings, which is what this ordinance said. We just can't adopt an ordinance on the same night as proposed, in effect achieving the same thing, without the confusion of what reading means. So that's probably it on process. We eliminated in Chapter 2, they had Tree Commission and Parks and Rec Advisory Board were both actually set out in ordinance. They're not actually operable right now, so it was a good time to take them out of the ordinance. And we added some language about just boards and commissions being established by the city council, and that you can adopt whatever rules of procedure that you want. We did preserve the rules and procedures for the Tree Commission and the Parks and Recreation Authority. If they were reconstituted, they'd have the same procedures they had as of the date we adopt this ordinance. So that's kind of a quick run through of those things. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions?
But my life will be a lot easier and happier if you do this, because we won't have to worry about conflicts with the charter. And I will say this, because we went through the Chapter 2, I knew about motions to rescind. And for the first time in my career, I've had to deal with a motion to rescind.
We're such overachievers.
Come to keeping you on your
Peppers
toes.
did point out one more substantive thing I failed to mention. In the finance portion of Chapter 2, we changed the budget can be done by a resolution rather than an ordinance. That's a change the staff wanted to do, so that things can be done a little less formally with having to go through an ordinance with 2 readings and all that.
Yeah, and I did want to stress on the public input also that it's not an attempt to limit that, but public input is a part of every agenda, and any resident can discuss an item of concern with the council member or mayor at any time to be added to the agenda, if they have some particular area of concern. So they could add, the council member could add that to the agenda if they feel that that's something that the council should consider. So,
correct.
I think that's probably the more, appropriate way to deal with that. And that just, I think, limits a lot of liability and what ifs, and we haven't had an issue with it before with the way it's been done. But it kind of left us wide open for some issues, I think, going forward. But I think that's a more appropriate way of doing it. So,
I think,
Mr. Carl?
I just want to make sure we're clear. I know Mr. Weaver brought up in public comment. Well, I think it was incorrect the way it was stated. I just want to make sure we're clear. There's nothing here has removed any citizen's right to redress their government. That's not something that has been changed. We still have a 10-minute public input. People can come up and speak on issues. Certainly, there's no desire to silence anybody from doing that. I'll press the question. Is that accurate? I mean, there's nothing here that's removed a constitutional right from anyone?
No, and that's assuming that the constitutional means the right to come to a meeting and speak as opposed to seek redress. But yes, public comment is actually, I wouldn't say strengthened, but it is clarified that it's to be in every meeting in at least 10 minutes of time. That was not in there before. We had a whole thing about public hearings, which were nonsensical, frankly, and so that's being taken out. But that doesn't impact the ability to speak at a meeting. The only change was the ability to put something on the agenda. And frankly, I think it's more effective to actually get a council member to put something on the agenda because you've already talked to somebody who is going to vote on it. So,
yeah, correct. And there's been many instances when someone, public input is a monologue, not a dialogue. We don't get in discussions there, but I mean, quite often something is presented by citizens in the public input that the council then later, when we're deliberating, will decide or, to place on the agenda is something that we want to discuss. So again, that's another route to place those, items on the agenda. So.
And I think also, just to reaffirm, I don't think we made a change, but citizens can also participate in the item on the agenda. Again, formality is they have to be called on, but that is also another option for providing feedback during an active discussion of an item agenda.
Right, that was already in there.
Yeah, we didn't change
council
that.
can vote to allow anybody to speak during an agenda discussion.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So we move on to Mr. Dyer, review of Chapter 6, alcoholic beverages.
Yes, so we had, of course, had a major overhaul in 2020, but there were some things that, some cleanup, you live with them and you realize some things. So in an effort to, the committee and the ordinance we adopted in 2020 wanted to match the state law as much as possible. We had left off one of the state law distance requirements, which was for wine or malt beverages within 300 feet of a school building, school grounds, or college campus. We've now, this ordinance would add that in. We will have all the distance requirements that the state have, we will now have, and we'll match them in the number of feet required. Mr. Ingram has suggested that our ordinance currently provides that the distances are measured along a straight line from the entrance of the alcohol outlet to the property line of a church or a school or whatever the protected area is. The state is a most direct route of travel. And Mr. Ingram is suggesting that we would change our ordinance to match the state's way of measuring. That would be then entrance to, or building to building. It wouldn't be even entrance. It would be closest point of building to closest point of building. And that would make us completely consistent with the state. I think there was one of the locations that people have mentioned in the liquor store might be allowed under state law measurement, but it wouldn't be allowed under the city's measurement. And so there's actually a practical reason that Mr. Ingram thought of that and mentioned it. If you wanted to do that, I would need some advice tonight to know whether to go ahead and put that in for the 16th. If everybody thought that was a good idea to do it that way.
I think that's a good idea. Let's match the state, make sure it's clear. Do you want to reflect the language of the state or just reference back to the state so if the
Well, no,
state changes?
we'll just change it to most direct route of travel.
Excellent. Thank you.
I mean, since we're changing everything else to comply with the state, I mean, I think that it's the most responsible thing to do. I mean, so many others, will say, as the crow flies, and I've never really understood that.
Well, most direct travel is as the crow flies, but it's a better way of saying it.
Exactly, so.
So, okay, then I will change that in the ordinance that you'll be voting on the 16th. The other change in here was there was one last place that we did not put distilled spirits in. Now that we have packaged distilled spirits, so that's putting that into the allowable licenses. We added for the hearing process for a revocation or suspension that the city manager can have an attorney other than the city attorney present the case. That sort of came up on that one suspension we had several months ago. There's a little awkwardness of how to present that. So that caused us to think through that. It would help the city manager to be able to be a witness with the presentation and questioning of other witnesses that the licensee might bring in be done by an attorney. So that was being added. We discussed about servers at special events, and so we're adding a provision that for a special event, the staff will create a form that'll have the relevant rules available for servers at an event that's serving alcohol, and they'll have to sign off on that form that they've been made aware of. We've had some questions in a couple events about who can serve. Do they have to have training? I think we've made some people come through training, and nobody really wanted to do that for a volunteer organization. So this was sort of a compromise way of making sure there's some education without burdening an event. Then the committee, after our committee meeting, of course, it came up about eliminating the maximum size for a package store. So that's in here, the maximum. We're eliminating the limit to 10,000 square feet. Now they can be as big as they want to be. So that's the alcohol ordinance changes.
Thank you. And any questions on that for Mr. Dyer? Not, we'll move forward to discussion proposed ordinance amendments to Chapter 10, Amusements and Entertainment.
And this is, I can do this actually in a summary. The changes here was all about billiard rooms, and we've just made it all the requirements for billiard rooms to match the alcohol requirements. So for employees, for licensees, permit holders, all the application requirements are now match between alcohol and billiard rooms.
Any questions? Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Next, we have discussion of 2022 council meeting calendar dates.
We've just provided you the list of dates based on next year's meetings. We didn't see any conflicts as it relates to holidays. As I've mentioned to each of you, one of the things that I've asked our staff liaisons to boards and commissions is that way going into next year we have a list of dates and times for all of those meetings and can better get that information out to the public and at least help our clerk's office in understanding when minutes and agenda requests and things like that should be coming in. But we wanted to present this to you just in case you had any questions about the meeting dates or wanted to make any changes. It doesn't have to be adopted tonight. We can adopt it at the next meeting.
Questions? Thank you. And we had item added, Mr. Dyer, to discuss the declaration of taking for Edgewater Hall.
You will recall that several months ago you approved and we have filed a couple of condemnation actions to acquire easement rights to make the sewer line improvements along the river. And the owner in one of the Edgewater Hall Enterprises has filed a petition to set aside, which is a motion to dismiss the petition, and raised a couple of issues. If you want to have a discussion about that, we can do that in executive session. But one of the things that has been raised is the fact that our expiration date of our temporary construction easement was in the petition, but was not in the declaration of taking. I am asking for you to go ahead and approve that amendment, because one option for the judge would be to order us to amend it, and I didn't want to get caught up in a time crunch without having a meeting for you to approve that, so I want to have that ready. We will probably file it regardless. So the amended declaration does two things. One, it adds the expiration date of July 31st, 2022 to the easement to make it clear that it's a temporary easement, and it adds the full property description. We had originally just referred to a deed, and we changed it to actually put in the full property description in addition to the deed reference, because there was a less than accept of 100 feet, which has become an issue. So,
okay. So
we would need
if we took
some
action, what would the
tonight.
motion need to be? How
The
would it be
motion
stated?
to approve the amended declaration of taking.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended declaration of taking.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. All members voted for the motion. Thank you, Mr. Dyer. Mr. Peppers.
Good evening. I have two items. The first one is a lot easier. We did collect over 200 blankets for our homeless veterans project in the month of November. Christine Davis over in Municipal Court and Lauren Johnson headed up that project for us and did a fantastic job. They got those taken over today. And so I know that the American Legion and those supporting groups will be distributing those this holiday season. So I wanted to recognize them for that work. The second thing, and I had mentioned this at our last meeting, that I would bring back to you a recommendation on the administrative process for the distilled package licenses. I put a copy of that in front of you. I emailed it out to you earlier today as well. I'll quickly go through that. It shows it's an 8-step process. Step number 1 would be that the city would issue a request for bids on January 3rd, 2022. As you note, and as Mr. Dyer has mentioned, there is an ordinance change that will be before you at the next meeting that removes the maximum square footage for those stores. That'll allow us the opportunity to get that new ordinance in front of all interested parties. The request for bids would include the following, which is the final ordinance for the distilled package sales, a timeline for the bid process, the administrative procedure post-bid award, an explanation of the use of the bid to offset fees, and a bidder information form. On January 14th, 2022 at 10 a.m., the city would host a mandatory pre-bid meeting here in the City Hall auditorium. Only those interested parties that attend that pre-bid meeting would be eligible to bid on the license. And the meeting would include the following: a presentation of the ordinance, explanation of the timeline, explanation of the administrative procedure post-bid award, explanation of the use of bid to offset fees, and a participant Q&A with staff and the city attorney. Number 3, all questions regarding the bid and or the process must be received in writing no later than January 21st, 2022 by 5 p.m. and would be submitted to Mr. Ingram. Responses to any questions received would be sent out to all parties that attended the mandatory pre-bid meeting no later than January 24th, 2022 at 5 p.m. Number 4, sealed bids would be due on January 28th, 2022 at 10 a.m. Publicly in the City Hall auditorium following that time and would be publicly read and ranked. The sealed bids must include that bidder information form, which would include the monetary bid for the license. In the case of tying top bids, the tied bids would be given until January 31st, 2022 at 2 p.m. to submit a revised bid. That way, it's, again, another sealed bid process for that license. After the determination of the high bid, the bidder will have until the end of the next business day to present the city with a certified check in the amount of the bid. If the check's not presented by the deadline, the next highest bidder would then be notified and given 48 hours to submit a certified check, and so on until the bid check had been accepted by the city. Once a bid check is in hand, the bidder will have 30 days to apply for the license or fill out the application, which is going to include all the information about the project, location, and what have you. Upon approval of the license, the bidder would then have 90 days to pull a permit related to the project. And as you can imagine, that permit might look different for the various projects. If it's new construction, that's going to be a different permit. It might be a disturbance permit. If they're going into an existing building, it might just be a building permit. If they're going into an existing building that's already ready, it would just be a business license at that point. If the permit or occupational license is not pulled within 90 days of the license approval, the city manager has the authority to revoke the license and begin the application process with the next highest bidder. That just prevents a situation where somebody gets the license and then holds it, and we don't have a movement in that process. Once the permit or the business license is pulled, the city will then do a request for bids to the public for the second license. The process would be followed for the second license, the third license, the fourth license, and it would be a similar process that we would follow in the future as population grows and we need to add a fifth license. One thing we wanted to note on the bid is that on the bidder information form, there would be a monetary bid that would be listed by the bidder. The highest amount will secure the option on the first license. 50% of what is bid by the bidder can be used as a credit against the fees associated with a project on the city side, and those might include the application fee, license fee, and permit fees associated with a project. The amount of the bid above that 50% would go into the city's general fund, and at the approval of the final CO, if there's any fees that were not used as part of the credit, those funds would also go into the city's general fund. So that's a basic of the process. I wanted to get it in front of you because I want you to be thinking about it between now and the next meeting. If you have any questions or ideas, we've talked a little bit about this. We've talked about it on the staff level. We have had some general conversations with interested parties about a bid process versus a first come, first serve, and in most cases, the parties don't want a first come, first serve because it really is going to put them in a bind as to having locations locked down. With a sealed bid, they don't necessarily have to have the location locked down until they move forward with the application process. But this will also get this out into the public. If council is okay with this tonight, what I would suggest is that we send this information out to the interested parties and see if they have any particular questions or they provide any concerns of things that maybe we haven't thought about, and we can bring it back to you at the next meeting. Once you approve the ordinance at the next meeting, then we would send out all of that information to those interested parties that we've already collected contact information for. And then, of course, as I said, we would have the bid process start the 1st of January. Any particular questions tonight? Yes, ma'am.
Will this information be released to the public in the form of a press release or social media alerts?
We could do so. We could send this out as a draft process and let the public know that council will be considering an ordinance at the next meeting. And if they have any comments, that they can email them to us. Absolutely.
Okay.
Would that be considered a reading, or is tonight considered a reading?
We'll do it as a resolution.
Oh, resolution, okay. Versus the ordinance, okay.
I meant the ordinance for the 10,000 square feet.
Okay.
There will be an ordinance on that.
Thank you for clarification. Ms. Wilson.
I don't have a question. I just want to commend the staff for bringing this to us. This is something that I don't think any of us had any idea what all was going to be entailed whenever we open package stores in the city of Canton. And it looks like that our process will probably be a model for other cities as they go through this as well. So thank you, staff, for what you did.
Yeah, I agree. It's excellent work, and I think it's been mentioned also the 50% that can go to their fees and startup fees. That would leave 50% of the bid if council wanted to decide if there's a special project or cause for those funds to go toward. We could do that, which I think was a double win. So. But I think the process is very good and certainly very fair. So, thank you.
That's all I have, unless you have any questions about anything else.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We didn't have any council introduced items added to the agenda. I'm just checking. I just have 3 short items. Just in reference to the council meeting dates, I just wanted to call everyone's attention, council's attention to plan to deliver the State of the City address on February 3rd. This year it will be in public with council in attendance, and so I'm excited about that, to be able to do that in real time. So I just wanted to get that on everyone's radar and calendar. Also, a couple other things dealing with the calendar and dates. Something we discussed is we'll be trying to determine sometime in that February, early March, late January, things for a council retreat to get that scheduled in. And then one other thing I would like to schedule in there, and we can discuss probably immediately following that retreat, is a joint meeting of council, all of our boards, our committees and commissions and staff members would be involved to review the roadmap and all of our goals discussed at the retreat, so we can talk about what we're all trying to do together and talk about our common goals and get everyone kind of headed in the same direction. So I know that's been offered or been discussed by several people, so I just want to kind of discuss some of those general timeframes for the first quarter, so we can be thinking beyond the holidays. So, next item was the discussion of committee appointments. You guys had in your packet the committee appointments that are coming up for Board of Appeals, the Canton Building Authority, Canton Development Authority, Canton Housing Authority, Canton Main Street Board, the Downtown Development Authority, and the Historic Preservation Commission, and along with the terms there and the terms that are expiring, members there. So we just wanted you guys to review these, and if you have suggestions, ideas, or thoughts on any of these, you want to share those with me. We can talk about those and discuss those at the next meeting. And some of these are time sensitive, some aren't necessarily so, but we don't have to kind of appoint everybody at the next meeting, but I just wanted to kind of get that on everyone's radar. The only thing that is time sensitive is the Canton Housing Authority. Nathan Brandon term does expire on 12/31/21, and they have a lot going on that we need to kind of continue their work. And I just wanted to say my intentions to nominate and appoint Tiffany Bird to fulfill that position and ask for approval by council at the next meeting. Discuss that with her. She's talked to members of the Housing Authority. She talked to Mr. Tolan and is very excited, and I think she would do a great job. I also kind of wanted to point out on the Canton Building Authority and Development Authority, you'll see kind of a lot of terms there. We actually went back and kind of pulled the Canton Building Authority is actually a legislative act that requires 5 members, all city residents. 3 members have a 1-year term, 2 members have a 3-year term, and then all their successors have a 4-year term. And the way it was set up originally, back in 2002, and approved by the Secretary of State and the Governor, we don't think that's actually been kind of followed since then. So we want to basically start from scratch on that, and also on the Canton Development Authority, which is actually a resolution, and it calls for 7 members, all city residents, 2 members having a 2-year term, 2 members having a 4-year term, and 3 members having a 6-year term. So we can talk about that, but it's just, again, those members, we only have the original resolution that was adopted in 2000. And it called for, those members to be reappointed on that schedule again, which really hasn't been followed. So we thought it was best just to do a new resolution for the Canton Development Authority and a new legislative act with those conditions for the Canton Building Authority. Neither one of those have any pressing issues. They don't meet very often, so we have some time there. But we just wanted to kind of be in compliance with on those two. So be thinking about those, and if you have some candidates in mind, let me know. And I think that's all I have. So, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn for a brief executive session to discuss real estate.
Motion to adjourn for brief executive session to discuss real estate.
Second.
Motion and a second. All members in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion. We are adjourned.
I have a question. Do we need to put a definition of brief into our?